Hi everyone, my name is Kayla. Welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf, where we talk about books. Today I'm going to go over the books that I am planning to read in August, but before we get into that, I just want to cover some housekeeping items regarding the videos, the channel, and the things I'll be reading, and maybe get some of your insight or thoughts on what I'm thinking of doing. With the Indie Accords readathon that just happened in July, my June wrap-up is going to be late, so I apologize, but I will be working on that shortly because I do want to share everything that I read back in June, but my competitive nature got the best of me and I ended up prioritizing reading much more than I did videos, or at least keeping up to date with some of the video content, and that will be coming soon, so hang in there. Aside from that, I'm considering changing my MBR videos around just a little bit, mainly just talking about the books that I have committed to reading in a particular month and leaving the rest a bit open, considering my MBR and TBR videos in past just seem to get derailed quite a bit, even with some of the commitments and buddy reads, but I'm just thinking of dialing it back a little bit in the sense of what I put on in my free reading choices. I'd like your thoughts on that because I feel bad that I tell you I'm going to potentially read something and then I end up not reading it just because I am a mood reader and it's something that you're expecting. And I mean, it's an MBR. I do tell you that I might read it, but I still feel bad. So I'd like your thoughts on that, on just whether or not you're still interested in seeing the books that I might possibly read, even if I don't end up reading them, or if you'd just like to hear about the books I have committed to in a particular month. Lastly, you'll see in the background of some of my videos coming up that my bookshelf looks different. That's because I've done a reorganization of my bookshelf and I pre-recorded some videos before I had done that won't be releasing until later, so I apologize if it looks a little different in between those videos or is a bit jarring, but the chaos that was my recording station with my books just all over was very much getting to me, and I just needed to reorganize the shelves and get everything packed in there so that books just weren't lying around everywhere. And with the housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about the books I am planning to read in August. The first being a continuation from July, which is actually a buddy read with a friend over on Discord, and that is Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson. And this is book one in a trilogy. It's about terraforming Mars and the, I guess, social implications of that, how it would potentially happen. And while it is hard sci-fi, it's not what I was expecting, in all honesty. I do love the depth of detail that it goes into, but it does have some interpersonal and social interactions that I just was not expecting. I don't hate it, but I wasn't expecting it, and I'm really intrigued to see where it goes. I'm about halfway through at the time of recording this, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the book goes and whether or not I'll continue the series, just because it is an unexpected reading experience and I just need to think about it. But overall, I'm enjoying it right now, and I'm curious to see how it's going to go. Next is another carryover from July, and this is Army of the Cursed by Karim Solomon, book one in the War of the Last Day series, which I believe is a duology. Now, this is a review request, so Karim very kindly sent me this copy in exchange for an honest review. I did start it for the Indie Accords readathon, but I am not a fast reader with physical books. I do like to take my time with them, and I'm really enjoying the opening of this so far. From what I understand, it follows 3 points of views of 3 characters that need to put their differences aside, work together for a greater good, and the Army of the Cursed is coming, so it sounds like there's going to be high stakes, and it is a self-published fantasy, which is just fantastic. I've been really enjoying indie books lately. There's just been so many that have really hit the mark for me, and I've just been wanting to read more and more in comparison to some traditionally published books. Not that they're bad in any way, but I'm just loving that there are so many hidden gems in indie books, and I just love the process of going through, finding them, and just enjoying the reading process, which is awesome so far. Next up is a book that I'll be starting in August, but will probably be reading into September for a new book club that I'll be co-hosting with Hannah Blackwell, and Maria might read that, which is Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer. This is another self-published book. It's an adult fantasy, and from what I've heard, it's almost like a love letter to classic fantasy, which is always nice to see. It apparently has some good versus evil, some lovable characters, and some representation for autism, I believe. From the description on the book, we follow a young character named Aram, who isn't really anything special, or at least he doesn't think he is, until one day he finds out that he is. And it sounds like it's just his struggles with trying to prove his worth and discovering this new aspect about himself. The tagline for it says, "Aram has the power to challenge the gods. He just doesn't know it yet." I mean, with the combination of lovable characters, the evil versus good, the classic fantasy tropes, this sounds like it's going to be a really fun read, and being able to read it as a part of the new book club that Hannah started called Femmes Afictionados, this is just going to be so much fun to share our thoughts with one another and then discuss for the live show in October, which is still to be determined on a date, but it's going to be so much fun. I'm looking forward to this one. Next on the list is another buddy read, but this is kind of a carryover from a buddy read that inadvertently started with the India Courts Readathon, and that is for Paths of Chaos by Erin S. Jones. This is book 2 in the Broken Gods trilogy that I ended up buddy reading with Esme and Lana over at the India Courts Discord. Now, I really enjoyed Flames of Rebellion, and Erin S. Jones is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors, so I'm really excited to continue because book 1 was just, it was great, and it left off in a way that I would have started this immediately if I had time. So I very much appreciate Esme holding back and just waiting for me to start this in August so that we can buddy read it together. Thank you, Esme, and I'm looking forward to sharing our thoughts together on this one. Book 1 in this series, at least, it just had a lot of action, diversity of cultures and characters, and a bit of magic to it with a lot of political influences, all of it wrapped up in a grimdark fantasy. It was just fantastic. So I'm looking forward to continuing this one and being able to read it with a friend. Next is another buddy read. I know there's a lot of buddy reads this month, but I was asked to participate in this one and I just couldn't say no for a few reasons, and I'll explain why in a minute. First, the book is Pyramids by Terry Pratchett. This is a standalone in the Discworld series. Now, this is a buddy read happening over with a bunch of different booktubers, organized by Dan over at Treebeard Book Reviews, and the reason I couldn't say no is I have been struggling on where to start with the Discworld series since last fall, around September of last year. So it's been a while, and I think the reason I just haven't started is I keep saying I'm going to start here. No, I'll start here. Oh, wait, I should start here instead. There's just a lot of places you can potentially start within the Discworld series, and the intimidation and the amount of choices, because there's about 40 or 41 books in this series, I just couldn't decide. So when Dan asked if I'd like to be a part of this, I said yes, because I just need to start. It's one of my goals to actually start reading Discworld this year, and I have not done it, and we're over halfway through the year, so this worked perfectly. I know it's probably not the best place to start with the series, but at this point, I just need to start or I won't. Now, if you want more information about Discworld and where you could potentially start in this series, or just maybe learn more about it, Derry has some fantastic videos out there with breaking all of it down and giving you some great insights into the series and the author. So I'll leave links down below or up in the cards, or you can find those videos if you want to learn more. For this read along, we're actually going to have quite a few people read reading with us. It's going to be so much fun, and that includes Self-Centered, Rekindled Reader, Tall Guy Reads, Bookish Chaz, of course Dan at the Treebeard Book Reviews, and Nico over from Nico's Book Reviews. This is just going to be a fantastic read-along, and it doesn't seem like the book is overly too long, so I should be able to sneak it in there. I am going to be trying this on audiobook and hopefully the ebook if I can get that as well, but I'd like to try with the audio just as I find some British humor is best done via audio. That's at least my experience with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I'm just looking forward to having fun and finally getting my foot in the door with Discworld. Thank you so much, Dan, for inviting me. This is going to be so much fun. Next is a book that I was very kindly sent from the author in exchange for an honest review, and one I am really excited to read, and that is The Blood of the Spear by Mark Timoney. This is another self-published fantasy book, and I actually just finished Starbinder, which is a loose prequel novella that Mark had written, and I enjoyed it so much. The detail of the world, the classic fantasy vibe, but just everything that he did with it was so engaging, and I'm really interested to see how his writing works in this one, what the story is like, and more of the world. This follows two brothers, a prophecy, and a world in peril. The world in and of itself was really intriguing, and I'm really interested to see more depth into it. Also, this cover is just awesome. Now this is about 600 pages, so it is a bit of a chunker. It is book one in the Eye of Eternity series, and I mean, I've heard great things from some amazing people who I have very similar tastes to, and just reading Starbinder alone had me wanting more, so I'm looking forward to reading this and just taking my time with it. The last book that I have on my list for August is Bonds of Chaos by Zach Argyle. I was very, very kindly included in the review team for the ARCs that have gone out, so the advanced reader copies, and I did receive an e-ARC for that, and it took all of my self-control to not just drop everything I was reading and start it, because it is my most anticipated book for this year. It is the conclusion in the Threadlight trilogy by Zach, and after Stones of Light, with how his writing just improved, the storytelling, the character building, the world, all of it, it just had me hooked, and I can't wait to see how it all comes together in this final book in the trilogy. With it only being available to reviewers for a few days, there are already reviews for it, and I have to say I apologize, but I have been ignoring all of them because I don't want anything being spoiled. So if you see me less on Twitter or other platforms, it's because I am trying to avoid that, but I can't wait to just get into this book and get started. Thank you so much, Zach, for considering me a review reader for this. I am beyond excited. So with that being everything on my list to read this month, I did actually want to give an update on Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, because yes, I did start it. I just ran into a bit of a wall with it, and it has nothing to do with the story. And I talked about this before, but I was giving the audiobook a try, and the narrator, Michael Kramer, is someone that I've listened to in narrations before, but for whatever reason, their voice acting for it or the recording, how they read, I have no idea what it is, but it seems to go in one ear and out the other, and unfortunately that's been my experience with Words of Radiance. I got about 150 pages in, and when I used the audiobook for the male casts in the chapters, I just found I wasn't retaining the story or information, and I don't like having that experience. So I am going to be reworking my reading plan with it, which is potentially listening to the audiobook for the female narrator and the female chapters, and then reading the physical book for the male perspectives in the chapters. So I'm not going to go too far back from where I've started, but I am going to go back and try and cover the story up to the point that I have read, just so that I make sure I haven't missed anything and I've retained the story. That's just my own experience with it and what I'd like to do to make sure I get the best experience out of it. So it's not that I haven't made progress, it's that I made some progress, and it just went in one ear and out the other for some of those chapters. So I am still reading that in the background. It's just not going to appear every month in these videos, just as it's going to be a bit of a slow haul for that because it is a long book. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'd love to know what you're planning to read in August. Have you read any of the ones on my list for August already? What did you think of them? I'd love to hear from you. And as always, take care of yourselves.